In an industry that's quick to say you can't,
we're here to say you can.
Helping musicians succeed,
No matter where they are.
Unsigned artists matter.
Why isn't anyone talking about this stuff?
There must be a reason.
the Afton podcast.
By musicians.
For musicians.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Afton Show's podcast. With you is Carl and Ryan. We are your lovely hosts for the podcast today. And today we're going to get into something that, maybe we don't think about enough. And maybe that's part of the problem. And in fact, it goes right along with the idea of thinking in general. It's something that I kind of stumbled along a few years ago and realized that there's 100% merit to it. It's something that probably everyone is aware of. If you've ever seen Star Wars, you're very aware of it. It's what would be considered the Force or the law of attraction or the secret. There's a whole documentary on this. But the whole concept is basically about your mindset. And the mindset is really the beginning of everything. Without the idea, there is no action. Without, connecting the idea to the action, there's really nothing. But everything starts in the mind. And when you realize that, and you realize that if you're putting out the right kind of thoughts, you realize what kind of power that has. And I think Ryan, we've had this conversation for a little bit, and I think you've got some great insight that I'm going to hand it over to you because I think I want to hear what you have to say on this.
That's right, Carl. This is something we've been talking about a lot this week. And I've been talking to a lot of musicians that are playing our shows. I go in and I talk to them, give them tips. They tell me about their roadblocks, how they're feeling, what's going on in their lives. I mean, I don't know how many times I talk to artists on a weekly check-in and they say, hey, I'm pretty down, right? I've had some ticket sales that came through, but a lot of people have said no. I'm not sure if my live show's good enough or if my music's good enough, what's going on. And it kind of reminded me, as a business owner, I feel this too, as well as when I create music and promote my live shows. Sometimes we let that doubt get in our heads. And sometimes there's these external factors going on around us that have nothing to do with us, right? Maybe I'm trying to sell tickets the wrong way. Maybe I'm not incentivizing you enough to buy tickets early. I'm not presenting my show as a fun experience that you don't want to miss out on. And pretty soon, because maybe I'm doing the wrong things or the wrong approach, I start internalizing that as no one cares about me. No one wants to go to my show. My music maybe sucks. And it's hard to do this. I am always reminding myself positivity on my mindset is always going to be more powerful than negativity and making excuses.
And scientifically, it's been shown that the synapses that are happening in the brain are real, right? So when you create a pathway in your brain, you're connecting an actual pathway of that thought to happen. So we have 14,000, 50,000 thoughts per day, whatever it is. There's an actual number that's been figured out. Of that, how many of them are negative? How many are positive? How many are just happening or just there? You just think like whatever random thing pops in your head, that's a thought, right? But when you start thinking about something specifically and you start putting that will, if you will, like, so if you wake up in the morning, and this is a brilliant thing, Bill Murray of all the people gave the best advice I've ever heard. And if you can apply this, it will work. He said, try to have a good morning, because if you have a good morning, it's a lot easier to have a good day. You don't have to worry about the whole good day. Once you've had the good morning and you've created that momentum, that positivity carries over, and it creates that pathway, that neural pathway in your brain to make the same thing. And so the same thing applies to, selling tickets, to promoting your band. If you wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to sell 20 tickets, and you commit yourself to that thought, and you don't let anything stop that, and you just go forth like a spear, you will be surprised. You might not sell 20 tickets, but you might sell 30.
That's right. And I think a lot of times as musicians, right, we start having this self-doubt and we start wondering, am I worthy? Is my music good enough? Is my live show good enough? Am I worth $10 or $12 for my fans to see me perform? And here is what I have seen, talking to hundreds and thousands of artists one-on-one, month after month. The local artists that kick ass are the ones that truly believe in themselves and see themselves succeeding. And these are the artists. Now, I don't want you to be delusional, right? I'm going to sell 1 million records or whatever. Maybe you will, but let's take it by step at a time. Let's take it one step at a time. There's a difference between being egotistical and delusional versus just having positive thinking. But the artists that sell the most tickets are the ones that believe that they are going to succeed, and they see it, and they believe their music is worthy, and they're excited about sharing the art they created with the world. So this is a great point. How many hours have you spent practicing, writing, recording, and rehearsing? You wouldn't be doing any of that if down deep you believed that your music wasn't good. And so have that confidence of you invest all this time into creating your music, and it needs to be heard by as many people as possible. And if you take that, if you really sit there and think about that, that is going to make your whole body, your mind, your soul just excited to go share, right? Excited to go sell tickets, excited to put posters up around town. I mean, if you truly believe what you have is valuable and you know people are going to benefit from it, then the sky's the limit. And I talked to an artist last week from New York City, and he told me, he said, Ryan, I have 10 excuses on why I can't sell tickets. These tickets are too expensive. The set is not long enough. The day of the week is not the right week. He went on and on and on. I think one of his excuses was even there's a street fair going on that day and everyone's going to be at that. But the point is, you can make 1,000 excuses that will prove you right.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is, if you say it is impossible to sell tickets, then you're right. You will not sell tickets. If you say it is impossible for me to book at a nice venue, then you will not book at a nice venue. And I know this sounds simple, right? This is not the Ryan and Carl New Age podcast. But if you really dissect this, you really look at yourself. If you really look at this, what you believe is what happens. Your actions come out of your beliefs. And so if I sit around saying it's too hard to sell tickets, it's too hard to build a fan base, I can never do it, then I'm right. And the sad thing for me is there are so many talented artists out there that are way better than I am. They're a better singer, better songwriter, but they are failing because they're their own worst enemy. They're inside their head and they're making excuses and they're saying all the reasons they can't. And all they have to do is believe they can do it and use our tips and strategies and try and put in the work. And pretty soon their talent is going to take them with the hard work to great places. They're going to sell 100 tickets. They're going to play all the shows they want. They're going to open for tours. And I think that's the most frustrating thing when I talk to artists. It's one thing if an artist is really having trouble, legit roadblocks that I'm trying to help them with. But when an artist comes back and just says, this is impossible, I can't do it.
That's it. That's really all that can be said ultimately. And you know, the thing is, you know, I practiced martial arts when I was younger and I used to skateboard. What do those things have in common? They both require you to believe that you can do what you can do. So, for example, you know, I'm sure every person out there has seen the karate guy that's chopped a piece of wood and broke it with his fist, or a concrete block, or whatever crazy thing is he broke with his bare hands, or Bruce Lee with the 2-inch punch knocking a guy back 20 feet. Well, the reason that those things can happen, it is literally the thing that we are talking about right now, that mindfulness, that positive thinking. Because when I trained in martial arts, you know, we weren't really big on breaking the boards, right? That wasn't the thing, but we learned how to do it. And the thing that was important about it was not the act of actually breaking it, but the belief that you could do it. Because once you set your mind to it and you put your energy from your brain into the actions of making your body into the vehicle that could break through that wood, it works every single time, and you don't even feel the pain. There's no pain. It's a really weird thing. Your mind takes over and it owns that whole thing. And that same mentality is the same thing that works in skateboarding. If you're a skateboarder, you know this. You try to hit a launch ramp and you're not ready, or you don't think you're going to hit it, you're going to fall every single time. Every time that you land that ollie or that kick flip, or, you know, do some crazy trick in a half pipe, whenever you do one of those things, it's because you committed and you said, I'm going to do it this time. And you can practice it over and over again, but it's only when you decide that it's going to happen that it happens. And you can try this in any place in your life, whether it's getting a job, whether it's looking for groceries, whether it's, you know, a parking space. Try it with a parking space. Tell yourself when you drive out to wherever you're going to go, and say it's a place that's hard to find parking, tell yourself, I'm going to find a parking spot in the front. And just the fact that you believe that, it's crazy how the universe meets you halfway. It doesn't always work, but it starts to work the more you do it. And the more that happens, the more positive, the more positive you are with your thoughts, the more positive that action and that attraction comes to you. And the same is in the reverse with the negative. If you start throwing those negative thoughts out there, that's what you're going to get back. You're going to see it more. It's like when you buy a car and you go, oh, wow, there's 100 of these cars all of a sudden. You never noticed it before, but now you do because you're switched on to it.
So here's something that works for me. When I start getting that self-doubt and those thoughts that tell me I'm not good enough, I'm going to make a mistake, maybe this isn't what I'm cut out for. And try this. I want you to take a piece of paper and make a list. And make a list of everything in your music career you've done well and that you've found success in.
That's a great idea.
Now I'm talking everything, right? Have you recorded an album in a real studio? If not, did you engineer and produce your own album in your home studio? Have you played shows where you drew people before? Have you drawn 20 people? If you've never played shows, have you successfully led your group to write a bunch of songs? And just start listing off everything you've done well, and what you're going to start seeing is you are awesome. The things that you've accomplished already, most people can't do. And as musicians, I think a lot of times society kind of begs on us a little too much, right? Like, oh yeah, he's just playing guitar or doing his raps in his closet. But what people don't realize is as musicians, we're business owners.
Yes.
We are business owners, we're marketers, we are salespeople, we are artists, we are creators, and there's so many hats that we wear. And sometimes I don't feel like you get credit for that. And what I want to say is if you're a musician and you've done anything, it is more than 90% of the population has done in their life, right? Most people don't even have hobbies, let alone, or maybe they golf, right? Cool, you play golf, but do you create music? Do you write lyrics? Do you have this innate depth to your creativity that makes you want to go outside of your bedroom and play live on stage and be in front of people? I mean, take stock of everything you have and all that you've done. And for me, that's when I'm feeling low, that's what makes me keep going. And that's what makes me say, if I did all that, if I funded an album, if I've booked 10 shows by myself, if I've sold 20 tickets, then I can sell 50 tickets. I can book 20 shows. I can go on tour. And that's the biggest thing with this mindset is focusing on the positives and having this confidence just will make everything easier. It will make promotion easier because fans and friends see, it's like what happened to Ryan? He's a new person. He just comes out shining. He's excited about his show and he's just confident. And he told me that it's one of the best songs he's ever written and he's going to play it next week at the show. And he told me he sold 33 tickets already. I didn't even know Ryan's band had a fan base. They sold 33 tickets. I better buy one. And so it's this snowball effect. And it's so crazy to me and all of our stress in our lives and all the things we're doing day to day that this simple principle can really make the difference between an artist telling me, Ryan, I have to cancel this show because nobody wants to come see me, versus Ryan, I just sold 60 tickets. I didn't think that was possible. How many can I sell next time?
Yeah. And, to piggyback on the concept, the best approach that you can take is literally when you get up in the morning or the afternoon or whenever it is you wake up, decide what you're going to do with that day. Right. And then do those things, and don't make excuses for why you can't do those things. Just do what you can. And the most amazing thing happens. You'll see those things happen. And, make a list of things you want to do that week. They could be crazy or they could be legitimately easy to do, but make that list and knock it off each day and kind of come up with a plan, and be mindful of trains.
Mindful of the train.
Little choo-choo time. Let's go ahead and let that. I wonder how much that it's actually picking up.
I don't know. I never really know.
Have you heard the train in any
Can you guys hear the train?
Can you hear the train?
I don't know. I don't think I can.
And in terms of your music, take what Ryan was saying and make that list, write it down, and then when you're done with that list, Put it on a wall where you can see it every single day. Put it in your practice room. Put it in your rehearsal. Put it in your studio. Put it somewhere you will see it. And if you kind of start to tune it out, rewrite it and add whatever you have since that time you wrote it before. And, come up with that plan of what you want to see happen. If you come up with a plan and write it down, this whole concept of the law of attraction is a crazy thing. There's a documentary called The Secret. I implore you to go look for it. It's a cheesy documentary, but the principles are amazing. And I stumbled on this in one of the worst times of my life. And what was crazy about it was literally the day I watched it, I tried one of the things, the parking thing, right? I mentioned that. That's one of the things that they talk about. Like, I'm gonna find a front row parking space. Me and my girlfriend were gonna go to dinner that night. She was gonna take me out because I was kind of down and had a bad day. And she took me out, and I was like, I'm gonna park right in front of that restaurant. And it was on a street that you don't get to park on. There's never parking there. And so I said, when we left the house, I'm gonna park right in front of that restaurant. And what's crazy, I don't know if it was luck or if it was what I was putting into the universe, but there was a parking spot right in front of that restaurant. And the thing was, once I realized that worked, I started to try it in all kinds of things. I said I wanted to move to Portland, and here I am. I live in Portland. I wanted to do this. Whenever you decide to do something and you set your mind to it, and what's crazy about it is I looked back, 30 years of my life, all the way back to when I was a dumb kid. And I saw how many times I applied that without really even being conscious of the fact that I was doing that. Like when I decided I wanted to be a musician, it was the weirdest thing. I just said, you know what? I like playing, I wasn't very good at it, but I said, I'm going to play guitar and I'm going to start a band. And I grew my hair out and I started a band, and here we are, all these years later. And it's crazy what one little twist of your thoughts can do for your entire destiny. So if you're sitting in your room right now, or you're sitting at your studio and you're just kind of, kicking yourself for not being the, musician that you think you are or whatever, just stop right now and realize that you are. Just like you said, everything you think you are. And if you think you're terrible, you're going to be terrible. If you think you're good, you're going to be good. And a lot of times when you say things out loud, that's another thing. So you think the thought, and that's great. But if you don't put any action into it, you don't put a train behind it to make it drive you. How are there so many trains? There was just a train.
Yeah, there was just a train. I wonder if it'd be funny to have it in the podcast.
Just a regular ongoing thing. I always lose my total train of thought. Train of thought.
I know, the train.
It's a train.
Putting thought into words.
Yeah, so putting the thought, the first step is the thought. The thought has to exist before actions can come about. No building is built until the architect thinks about it, right? And draws it. And so there's the intermediary aspect of this, which is putting the action in place, which is putting it on paper, making a plan. So you think the thought and you say, let's just say for our sake of our conversation, I want to sell 100 tickets to my show. And maybe you sold one and you're like thinking that's crazy. Write it down. I'm going to sell 100 tickets. Literally get it on a piece of paper, stick it to your door, stick it to your wall, somewhere where you can see it and you can reflect on it every single day. You can't ignore it. It's right there. And then read it out loud to yourself every single day. When you get up, when you go to bed, say you're going to do it. And with that, you'll start to see these opportunities start to emerge. The universe will start throwing you not curveballs, but nice softball pitches. You might say this, and then literally the next hour, you'll get a call from an old friend you haven't seen in a while saying, hey, what are you up to? And you go, oh, I'm trying to get some tickets sold to my show. And he's like, oh, that's crazy because I got 20 friends coming to town next month. When are you playing? Oh, I'm playing next month. And I'm not saying that it just happens all the time like that, but you will be surprised the second you become aware in your brain that you want to do these things, and you switch on the radar, if you will, of the universe, meeting you halfway. You will start to see these opportunities unfold. Sun Tzu, my favorite, philosopher with The Art of War, says opportunities multiply as they are seized, and it is a very true statement. Whether it's a tiny opportunity or a huge one, take it as they go, and they will accumulate every single day. It's amazing.
You raise a really good point with goals. So a lot of musicians that I talk to, and I was guilty of this back in the day myself, but we don't really set goals. We kind of have these of course your goal is to get signed and get famous, but we don't actually have a plan for the intermediary steps to that great goal. And so what I would say, think about what your goals are for this next show and make them big. Do you want to sell 30 CDs at the show? Because if that's your goal and everyone in your group knows you want to sell 30 CDs at the show, then guess what you're going to do? You're not just going to perform and walk off stage. If your goal is to sell 30 CDs, then every member of your group is going to have a plan to talk to every person in the building and ask them to buy a CD. And one of you is going to go to the merch table and announce that you're going there to give out free stickers so that a line of people follow him to the merch table. And not only that, but you're going to, if your plan is to sell 30 CDs and you're 10 short and the show's almost over, then one of you is going to go to the exit door, and every person leaving, you're going to sell discounted CDs as a last attempt. So do you see the difference? If my band or my rap group just is like, we want to sell a lot of CDs, we go to the show, we have some drinks, we go talk to our girlfriends off stage. But if our goal is to sell 30 CDs, if that's our end game plan, then now we actually are strategizing on how to meet that goal. And so something I would challenge you to do is every show you have, make goals. I want to sell 30 CDs at the show. I want to meet 2 artists at the show that I like, that I was impressed with, and exchange business cards so that I can book more shows with them. I want to meet the venue owner at the show. I want to impress the promoter, and I want to sell 50 tickets. Now you tell me, you know a lot of musicians in your city. You've been to a lot of shows. You're in the scene. How many artists do all of those things at a show?
You never know.
Not very many.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the thing. What we tell you guys, it's so simple. Right? This isn't, you don't have to go get a 6-year college master's degree in music business. You don't need to go out and buy $1 million recording studio. You don't have to go out and take out a huge bank loan. All you have to do are these simple things, and it multiplies and multiplies. And that's where I feel like this mindset comes in. The worst thing I hear is when an artist tells me, none of my fans buy tickets in advance. They all pay at the door. And I tell that artist, I say, you're right, because you let them do that, you believe that's what they do, and you believe you can't change that. Now, if an artist comes to me and says that and asks me for advice, I'd say, go back to your fans. Tell them, you have to buy a ticket in advance. You can't go to my show. You can't buy at the door. If you want to support me, here's the ticket, buy it, or you can't go to the show, right? Mm-hmm. They might be a little weirded out. They might be like, why can't I buy at the door? What's going on? But you can change their mindset. Most of them are just gonna be like, okay, that's weird, but here's my money.
Right.
So the mindset is everything, and just the way you approach your fans, the way you can change anyone's mind. If a fan comes to me and I'm like, hey, I'm playing on a Monday night, and they're like, oh man, I only go to shows on weekends. I don't go on Monday nights because I have to work the next day. I say, well, tell you what, I'll play at 7:00. You can be home by 8. What do you do on a Monday night? Do you watch Netflix? Okay, we'll watch Netflix the next night. On Monday, come out and have an awesome time. Oh, you don't want to be hungover at work? Then don't drink a lot, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden, this conversation with this fan becomes a maybe, that's a good point. I could come out and be home by 8:00. But if my conversation with the fan is they say, I don't go to shows on Monday, and I say, well, then I guess you're not coming to my show, then there is no potential for anyone to change their mind.
Yeah, it really comes down to Star Wars. I'll bring it back to Yoda one more time, because, you don't have to have your 4-year degree in business marketing, to understand this. You just have to watch Empire Strikes Back. Do or do not, there is no try. Do or do not, there is no try. Those are words that I have lived with throughout my life. That is the words from Yoda, okay? The Jedi Master. Because the Jedi Master and the Jedi way is all about this. What we're talking about, mindfulness, being aware of the thoughts that you put out there and how they can impact the world that you live in, and how they can impact your career as a musician, or your career as, a promoter, or your career as, an architect, or whatever it is. I mean, for our sake, we're obviously talking about musicians, but this is something that works for everybody. And really, you will see a difference if you start to become aware of these things and you start to apply them. Just do a little bit at a time. It really is magic. It's Jedi, ways. It's a crazy thing that really does work. I mean, Luke could not lift the X-Wing fighter out of the swamp because he didn't believe it. It wasn't until Yoda told him and showed him that it was possible that he believed. And what's amazing about that is, I watched that movie when I was a kid. I don't even I can't even recall the first time I saw it. But I had all the toys and I used to play with that stuff when I was a kid, not realizing the impact that it would have on my entire life. Here I am on a podcast, all these years later, talking about it in such a way that really does make a difference in other people's lives. And I hope that you're listening to this thinking, well, first of all, Carl's crazy and he's obviously a Star Wars nerd. Second of all, he's got a point. And I'm telling you, if you haven't done it before, give it a try. You can't lose. There's nothing you can lose. You're not losing any money by trying this. You're not losing any sleep. You're not losing any kind of, your car's not going away. You're not losing your job. You're not losing anything like that by trying this tactic. There's nothing but benefit that can gain from it. And I want you to also, if you've never really thought about this stuff, think about where you are right now and how you got here. And I promise you, every single person that hears this is going to think about their lives and realize they've been doing this at every step of their way. Whether they succeeded or failed, it was 95% in their brain originally that they succeeded and failed first. And it wasn't until they decided that they would succeed or fail that they did. Almost never do you decide you're going to do something and not do it.
Here's another thing to consider. We as musicians, we see ourselves as creative people, and the art is what we create, right? But I think it's easy to forget, or it's easy to kind of cower back and say, I'm not a marketing person, I'm a musician. I'm not a salesman, I'm a musician. I'm not a booking agent, I'm a musician. And, I really have found that the sooner a musician realizes that they wear 20 different hats and they embrace that and they try to improve their skills in each of those areas, the more successful they are. And there are a lot of talented artists out there that are platinum selling artists, right? But they're a mess. It's like Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses.
Oh man,
was a mess, right? He wasn't a good entrepreneur. He wasn't a good marketer. And what happens is if you don't learn these skills and you do succeed as an artist, you're going to end up paying everyone around you to basically babysit you and clean up your messes or do things for you that you could do yourself. And that's costing you a lot of money. So a good example is if you as a local musician figure out how to do Facebook ads that are effective, and we're going to do a podcast on Facebook ads for local artists. But if you take it upon yourself because you want to build your fan base to learn how to run Facebook ads effectively, then guess what? When your band gets signed in 2 years, you don't have to pay $20,000 a year to a marketing agency to run Facebook ads for you. Or if you know how to book your own shows because you book shows through Afton and you've learned all of our tips and you take that on to everywhere else you book, you know what bookers are looking for, you know how to talk to people that are booking, you know how to send a good press pack. If you develop that skill, then you don't have to spend $50,000 a year when you get bigger to hire a booking agent. I mean, there's a lot of bands we work with that go on tour, like national tours, 30-date tours with Afton. Big bands drawing 500 to 1,000 people a night, and they're running Kickstarters to fund their albums. They don't have a record label because they don't need one anymore, and they don't have a booking agent because between Afton and themselves, they're booking all of their own events. So I think this is exciting, right? Like we live in this era where this isn't 1955 where you have to go to a big recording studio to cut your vinyl record and you have to have a record label that gets you on the radio. We live in this time where we can Google whatever we need to. We can listen to podcasts like the one we're doing. We can listen to Gary V about social media marketing, which if you haven't checked out Gary Vaynerchuk, I love that guy. Check him out.
Beast.
But my point is, again, mindset. If my mindset is I'm just a musician, that's all I do. I play guitar 12 hours a day. I shouldn't have to do anything else. That's fine, but you're really missing out on a lot of long-term success. And the exciting part is if you put the work into these areas, if you become a salesman, if you become a marketer, if you become your booking agent for your artist, then you're not only going to save tens of thousands of dollars in the long run, but you're going to have skills that no other musician has. And what I really felt this when I started out in my band in high school and college. My band was pretty good, but I played with a lot of bands that were better. I played with bands that were so much better than my band, it almost made me want to stop playing guitar.
I've been there.
Right? I'd be like, I will never be as talented as a singer as this guy.
Yeah.
I guess I should quit. And so what I took there's two ways I could have interpreted that. I could have said, I'm not good enough because I played with 10 bands that are better than I'll ever be, so I quit. But instead what I told myself was, just because they're better than me and more talented does not mean I can't succeed. It just means I have to work harder in all the other areas that they're lacking in. And here's a great example. The best band in the world, if they can't market or grow a fan base, has a small chance of success. But a mediocre talent band that is selling 1,000 tickets everywhere they play and killing it on marketing and have street teams and fan base that loves them and is paying them money on Patreon every month, or they're making millions of dollars off their YouTube channel, they're going to succeed. And so for me, it was an exciting thing. My mindset was, I'm okay being mediocre compared to these guys because I have these 20 other areas that I know I can work harder at and do better at. And that's how I succeed. And ultimately, let's think about this. If only the most talented people could succeed, then 95% of us should never try, right?
Right.
So it's exciting that talent isn't everything. Talent helps you. It makes it easier. But what's more exciting to me is my mediocre band could have more success than the more talented bands just by working smarter and working harder. And again, this just all comes down to mindset, right? It's my mindset on how I see what's happening to me in my situation. And so remember that.
And remember to make a plan with that mindset, right? So, action items, homework for you, before we slide out of here. We want you to take this idea and actually do something with it that will help you, because, we do get the occasional criticism that, oh, well, Afton, they just want to take the money and run and all this, and it's like, well, no, first of all, there's not a lot of money. Second of all, what we're really trying to do is give musicians the tools that they need to succeed so that they can do it themselves. We're basically trying to, make you self-starting, And so what I'd like to see happen is, first of all, if you have a suggestion about, if you've taken this advice in the past, you've listened to this podcast and you go, I have a story about that. Shoot us an email at podcast@myafton.com. We'd love to hear from you. But ultimately create a plan. The first thing is, remember, it all starts in your brain. Whatever you think is what you are, and whatever you think you are is what you are. And so if you think you're a loser, you're going to be a loser. If you think you're a winner, you're going to be a winner. If you think you're a rock star, you're going to be a rock star. It's just that simple. And with that in mind, create a plan, a goal plan. So, make it as short as you want it, as long as you want it. Make it a month plan, make it a year plan, make it a 5-year plan, and create the goal that you want at the end of that and work backwards. And from that backwards point, so say let's make it easy and say, in 1 month, I'm going to book a show and I'm going to sell 100 tickets. So book the show. You can book with us, or you can book another show. We're not even trying to get you to only book with us.
Right.
Obviously, we can do that for you and help you out. But if you say you want to book a show and you want to sell 100 tickets, which might sound crazy to you, just realize that once you make that goal, work backwards and create a plan that can get you there, and chew the elephant down one bite at a time. You look at an artist that's got 100 million views on YouTube and you go, there's no way I'll ever be able to do that. Well, I bet you that artist thought that once too. You create the thought, you create the action plan, and you watch your destiny unfold.
And remember, the self-doubt, when that starts creeping in, when you start thinking you're not good enough, you can't do it, or you start making excuse after excuse, just stop yourself. Snap your fingers and look back at all of your past accomplishments, everything you've done as a musician, and get that confidence back. And remember that you do matter. And no matter what anyone in our industry says, no matter what a booking agent or a record label, or no matter what rejection you get from venues, you deserve to play on stage for your fans. And Afton will always be here to support you in that. Whether you book with us or not, we have podcasts, blogs, articles. You can always email us. All we want to do is make sure that musicians are doing the best they can and continue to create their art and play live shows and have fun.
That's right. In closing, I'll leave you with my words of wisdom that I gave earlier from the immortal Yoda. Do or do not. There is no try. I'm Carl.
And I'm Ryan.
And we'll talk to you next time.